Good evening. My name is Christine Yim, and I am a junior attending Fort Lee High School. To start off, I would like to thank our special guests, Judge Bruce Balter, Sheriff Michael Sardino, Mayor Robert White, Chief Paul Sell, and Executive Director of LEAD, Nick DeMuro, for coming to this event. I would also like to thank everyone here for giving me this opportunity to share the knowledge I've obtained from this research. Now, what exactly did I research about? I prepared this paper regarding the role and establishment of law enforcement, law and order, and the criminal justice system in our state, New Jersey. Law enforcement is a crucial and essential system present in the lives of citizens and potentially everyone else. In other words, without law enforcement, there would be chaos and a lack of order. Law enforcement is very self-explanatory. It describes the individuals and agencies responsible for enforcing laws, maintaining public order, and ensuring public safety. This consists of a wide variety of ways to protect people, including prevention, detection, investigation, and many more. Law enforcement, in fact, can be traced back to the ancient societies where, although their system wasn't nearly as developed as our modern system, the people still seek for justice. So obviously, it was very different back then, and knowing that the idea of crime prevention was almost non-existent, the world advanced and law enforcement advanced with it, leading to the most sophisticated means of ensuring public order and safety. Aforementioned, there are many who work to help enforce the law, and each law enforcement officer have responsibilities depending on the branch of law enforcement in which they are employed. These branches include federal, local, detective, and evidently many more branches. For example, at the federal level, the responsibilities of a law enforcement officer with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, prevalently known as the FBI, are focused on enforcing federal laws and investigating federal crimes, whereas the responsibilities of a law enforcement officer at the detective level include investigating and solving local crimes. With this said, obviously the idea of law enforcement in the United States had to have originated from somewhere at some time. Further research led to the establishment of law enforcement in Boston more than 350 years ago. It is stated that around 1630, when the colonists settled in Boston, local ordinances allowed peace officers with limited policing authority, called the constables, to be appointed. There were watchmen and volunteers who would willingly help to patrol at night. At the time, law enforcement was both obligatory and voluntary, and while these men were needed to maintain the order in the streets, to eventually capture and arrest lawbreakers, and to bring suspects and witnesses to court. Additionally, there were sheriffs appointed by the governor, and these people were known as the main law enforcement figures. Again, as time passed, the idea of law enforcement began to advance into a more serious and obligatory system. As more and more people began settling into these colonies, more watchmen were needed. At times, social problems, and in many cases, public drunkenness, brawls, and even prostitution became more common, resulting in police work becoming increasingly time-consuming and difficult. With that in mind, many people decided to veer away from volunteering as watchmen. As a hopeful solution, Philadelphia passed a law that restructured the watchmen in an attempt to solve these problems in 1749. Wardens would have the authority to hire watchmen as needed, and men were no longer obligated to work when summoned. It was their choice, and those who ended up working were paid with the tax paid by the citizens. Now, this reform in Philadelphia didn't simply solve a problem. It stirred inspiration, and eventually other states will look forward to making additional improvements to the system and using it themselves. This was only the beginning, and obviously with much change, the idea of the system reached our state. Now in New Jersey, there are law enforcement services that many people should be aware of. Specifically, there is a law enforcement agency standards program, which was developed in conjunction with the New Jersey State Chiefs of Police Association, and it was designed mainly to assist police executives effectively organize and manage the operation of their departments, to provide quality police services, and to address community needs. Thanks to the establishment of law enforcement in the mid-1600s, there were only room left for expansion and improvement of the system in many ways in order to successfully help the communities. For some time now, law and order is said to be more of a perception than a policy. Going back to the colonial era, British attempts to impose law and order were met with occasional mob actions and armed resistance. The king hoped to settle these problems by attempting to instill this fear in the people in hopes to prevent such unruly actions. He passed a series of acts prohibiting settlement in the west of the Appalachian Mountains, suspending disobedient colonial legislatures, and heavily taxing American subjects. However, these acts only sparked upon open rebellion and eventually independence. By the mid-century, law and order parties reached across the Americas in order to fight social changes and to maintain the status quo for those in power. There were many times when the law and order leagues and organizers carried out actions to somehow maintain order, but by the mid to late 1900s, there seemed to be a tension existing between the law and the order. One view of law and order was that law was simply a means to an end, or the establishment of order. However, law and order would soon after have a single meaning: a restoration of the traditional social order. Over time, law and order movements were often forced by the social changes they tried to suppress. In the end, law and order is simply the enforcement of penalties imposed under criminal law dealing with instances of theft, violences, and generally a disturbance of peace. Hopefully, law and order should be reached with a consensus among our leaders in order to legitimately ensure justice and safety within our communities. Finally, the Division of Criminal Justice. The Division of Criminal Justice was formed under the Criminal Justice Act of 1970. It designated the Attorney General as the chief law enforcement officer of the state, and on behalf of the Attorney General, the division provides various functions related to the administration of criminal justice. Their main responsibility is to detect, enforce, and prosecute the criminal business of the state. This division consists of workers like deputy attorney generals, detectives, and professional personnel. They work together to coordinate law enforcement efforts to share resources within criminal justice communities in order to ensure the safety of all New Jersey citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. A lot of items you talked about are so true here in New Jersey, and especially when you talk about law enforcement accreditation. I can tell you, Mayor Robert White, as the accreditation manager, Southbrook Police Department, where we come from, was one of the first agencies here in New Jersey to become certified. That was back in 2006 under the leadership of Mayor Robert White. Thank you, Christine. Look forward to your continuation in our program.